And this is a part 2 of 2D to 3D, our little art class that we're doing here at Oakland Park Self Museum, and also here on Twitch. I am Tank. I'm going to be your instructor. We finished the first part, which was all Procreate, and now we're going to jump into Nomad Sculpt, and we're going to get started in making our robot. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is open Nomad Sculpt. This is not what we're doing today, guys. This is just a little project I was working on. And yeah, it just happens to be on the screen. But we're gonna start our new project. And first thing we're gonna do is when you open up new Nomad Sculpt, it's gonna be a new scene. We're gonna create a new scene. And immediately it's gonna give you this ball. Well, we need to back up. There's a few things that we need to do first. So in the first thing that looks like a file, we're going to save it as something to make it a new file. But first we need to go down to autosave, and we're gonna do turn on autosave, and the timer pop-up is every 3 minutes. You're gonna really want to do this because I forget to save all the time, and this is a lifesaver in case we do something and it accidentally crashes the program. But I've been getting really good at not doing that, but it just helps us save. So we're gonna create this new project, and we're gonna save as new, and we're gonna call it artbot, or 00art, 00ART. And we're gonna name, that's our new scene. So once you save it for the first time, it'll pop up with this ball, and it says save as. We just hit save now, and save out as often as you like. Excuse me, but remember, first thing we're going to do is go down to autosave, timer pop-up, make it every 3 minutes, and the timer pop-up will come up and it'll save for you every 3 minutes. That's the first thing we're going to do. So this is Nomad Sculpt, and it may seem very complicated at first because there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of things that go on, and you have to figure all this stuff out. But I'm here to show you how we can take that 2D drawing that we made and make it into a 3D robot. So since we just saved, we learned how to save. It's this file thing right here. Remember, the file is for save. And then we have the auto save every 3 minutes, which is important. The next box next to that is called the scene. And our scenes originally start with a sphere. The scene is the sphere itself. Just this space here is the scene. And our scene starts with this crazy high polygon sphere that we're gonna get rid of in a minute, but I'm just gonna go on the list. The next is the resolutions. We got multi-res, we got voxel remesh, we got dynamic topology, and miscellaneous. And miscellaneous is gonna be our best friend because of this word right here, decimation. And we'll get to that later. The next thing is the material for the object. An object has to be validated, and I'll explain that in a little bit as well. But once it's validated, you can change the object itself into all these different types of material. Shading. The next one is the lighting. So when we go to the first thing that we're going to do before we start our real project is we're going to change it from lit PBR, because this is what we use when we go to painting, and then we're going to go to matte cap. Matte cap makes everything into clay. And when we're building, it's easier to see and it's easier on our eyes, and it's just so much easier to have everything as this clay. The next thing is the quality and post-processing. And this is for after we're done with our project. After we're done on our painting, this is the fun part. We'll get to that much later. Next is the background color and the reference image. So the background color, again, same thing as in Procreate. We don't want it this super white color because it's a headache. It's hard to see. And like this little tint of red or gray. I like the little tint of red. It's easier on my eyes. And so that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to change the background color. It can either be a gradient, it could be an environment, it could be the color. I like color. Gradient is new. This is part of the new update. It could be 2 different colors. That's kind of cool. A lot. That's actually really cool. Right there. And then there. And it's like a gradient. Whatever. Color works. Change the color to like a darker red or just a gray. Something easy enough. Um, and then the last one is the camera. Another thing you have to change immediately is it usually starts out as perspective. We want it orthographic. It just makes everything easier to rotate when it's orthographic. So change that to orthographic in the camera settings and we're good to go. Now that's the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we have all of our different tools. There's this box in the very right-hand corner, and it has all the different tools that you can use. Quad remesher you have to pay for. I mean, it's $15, but I mean, eventually when you get to complex projects, it's worth it, so just buy it. We have our clay tool, which adds to our ball of clay. Now, clay just adds to whatever you're doing. Now, there's a bunch of tools on the left here that increase and decrease the radius and opacity, just like in Procreate. So let's start with the clay tool. The clay tool, like I said, adds to whatever you have here. As you can see, adding the clay just drew all this on to the sphere. Now you can make it bigger or smaller, the less radius with more or less pixels. Now you see this thing underneath it where it says symmetry. That's what's happening. It's drawing on both sides as I draw with one side. So as I keep doing circles here, now there's these two jetting out circles on the sphere. If I turn off symmetry, it'll just be in that one spot that I'm drawing with. So that's what you like to have symmetry on for most things. Now there's subdivide, which erases in the area that we're using the clay. Subdivide makes an indent and it erases what we've done. Smooth makes the area that it gives that area a bunch more polygons and it smooths it out. So like this crevice here, it makes it nice and smooth. It evens and smooths out anything that we touch. Look at that. And it's all gross and nasty and weird. You can make it bigger and smaller. Make that nice and smooth. Look at that. Look how smooth those face balls are. It's gross. Anyway. And then you can mask it in certain parts. You'll just draw a mask, meaning that whatever you affect won't affect that spot that you have masked. So then we go back to subsurface and then relax, smooth. We got subdivide. And everything around the mask is getting shrunk in, but not on that mask itself. You see that? That's a mask. And you can invert it so that everything around the mask won't be touched. And if you want to, it's the same thing as Procreate. For if we want to undo something, it's tap with 2 fingers. If we want to redo something, it's a tap with 3 fingers. So that's convenient to know. And then you can blur stuff, you can sharpen stuff. We'll get to that later. We don't really need to do that. Gizmo is a very important tool here in Nomad Sculpt. The gizmo allows you to move your object in the space by using any of these markers here. So we have these arrows that'll pull it in whatever axis, the red axis, the X, Y, and Z axis. It'll move it in those spaces. Now, there's a little thing in the corner here. Let's see, we got that autosave, which is very important. Thank you, autosave. We have this little thing in the top right corner that allows us to rotate things in the space easier than if we were to just move it around with our finger or use the pen offhand. You can just go to this corner here and affect the ball. If you click it twice, it'll give you the center. If you click it once, it'll give you the center. If you click it twice, it'll rotate it completely backwards 180 degrees. So we hit the top here, we hit the top, hit the top again, it'll give us the bottom. We hit the left and hit it again to get us the right. Now let's say it's at an angle and we want it straight. We just click the side that we want. And now let's say this is really, really small. We're gonna zoom out. Same thing to zoom in and zoom out. To zoom in, we pinch the screen and pull our fingers away. To zoom out, to zoom out, we move our fingers closer together. So let's say this thing is moved very far away and it's super duper tiny. There's this little button called the home, which makes it go to world center. And you can check that by going to this gizmo right here, the setting gizmo, and then go down. Where is it? Operation. You can move origin. You can reset or bake. I think I'm thinking of the wrong thing. Maybe it's in the settings. Okay. Okay. Sorry. It's in the settings. Wireframe, two-sided, highlight, snap cube, state. Reset the default multi-res stats. Oh, that's another thing. So in our settings on the top right here, we didn't get to it yet, but in the settings on the very bottom, turn on the stats. I have it in the top left corner. It shows you how much space that you use in the scene. So it's right now it's at 88.9 megabytes out of 1.58 gigabytes of RAM, I guess, of space used in a scene. If it gets too close to the 1.58, it'll crash. But don't worry, we're gonna make this thing so tiny and take up so little space that we can put a whole bunch of things together if we wanted to. But we will get there in a little bit. All right. Shortcuts, interface, gestures, binding, debug. Okay, interface. There's nothing really we need to change here for the basics. The key bindings, we don't really need to change anything. The gestures, we don't need to change anything for that. Honestly, I think we're good. Okay, but this little house, it'll bring it'll bring whatever object from far away or whatever it is, as long as it's your main thing, it'll bring it to the world center. Now another thing, you can either click the home to make it world center. Now let's say this is at an angle like that. There's this like square here at the top too. That'll move it to the center of the screen, but it'll keep it at that angle in case you need to work at this angle here. And then you hit the home, it'll turn it this way. So what you just saw me do was affect this circle thing that we made by, again, moving it along the axis. The green axis with the little circle at the top will make it wider that way. So when we turn it to the side, it's just thin. Again, back to the front, we hit the home button. Now the red axis will make it wider. And we turn it to the side, we can see that it's wider and it's still thin. Now from this angle, the blue axis makes it thicker again. And so now it's thick all the way around. There's another thing you can do. You see this outer circle here? You can move this in and out and it'll scale the entire project on all three axes evenly. I like this a lot. So don't forget that this is here because you can make it smaller or bigger along all the axes evenly, and it's a beautiful tool. Now, the inside circle, you can use that to rotate your project around in this space. As you can see that I'm doing here, it's inside the middle circle here, and it just rotates it around in the space however you need it to rotate. Or you can use these lines here and rotate it just on that axis. As you can see how I'm doing here, you see these lines, the red axis, the green axis, the blue axis. And then we just go hit the home button. And then we're gonna flip this bad boy around. We're gonna go home center like that. Now there's other ways that you can rotate this around. So if, let's say you want it particularly rotated in a specific direction, on the left-hand side, you can align your gizmo axes in case it ever come unaligned. Let's say it's like this or something, and turn off align. Now it's like this, but let's say now this is our new front facing the way that we want it. We hit align, and now it'll align it this way forever. It'll be orientated in the straight direction no matter how you rotate it, unless you rotate it in the space. And then once you rotate it in the space, again, we can realign it in that space to make it straight. But it'll be around the world center. Now, let's turn our bad boy around. We're gonna get into the building the robot soon, but this is all part of the just the introduction, working the gizmo, because the gizmo is so important. I have my gizmo set up to the very bottom, except for hide, face groups, and quad remesher. These are all new. But yeah, I have my gizmo set to the very bottom, on my screen. So there's two different ways that you can have your layout. You can have it this big box, which is kind of in the way, or you can have it along the side. And I like to have it along the side here, and the gizmo is the very bottom one for me. So anyway, back down the left-hand side, there's a thing called snap. Now this will rotate your object in whatever degrees you set it at. So for 90 degrees, you'll keep rotating around the axis, boom, and it'll snap to 90. And then, unless you play in the center, but if you play along the lines, boom, it'll snap 90. Boom, it'll snap 90. Boom, it'll snap 90. You see how that works? You gotta go until it rotates at 90 degrees. You can change that by clicking the 90 and putting it a new direction. Let's do 45. So, and now it'll snap at 45 degrees. So here, snap 45, snap 45, snap 45, snap 40. See? As it rotates along the axis at 45 degree angles. Not bad. And let's turn off the snap. Now there's a snap point, which is 1%. It starts at 1%. You can change the value. Let's do that. See what happens. Not too much. I don't really use the snap one there. And then pretty much, yeah, that's the gizmo tool. It just gives you ways to snap things into place or just rotate your project. Now, I don't really use this initial thing, but we're just using it to explore the tools. So the next tool on the map is move. So the move tool, again, you have the option to do it symmetrical or not. Make the size of it really big, a lot of pixels or not. Make it the opacity high or low. And intensity, which is pretty much the opacity. So the move tool is sort of like the clay tool, but you can move things with it. Look at that. Look how I'm moving this guy's little thing here. Whatever this was, and just move it. And you can move the other side. And if you have symmetry on, if it's directly in the world center, then things will start to move symmetrical. But that's only if your object is world center. See the double center right there, like that? The W means world center. Turn off symmetrical, and you just move things individually by moving it. Like I said, you can make it bigger and move a big old piece. You can make it smaller and move a tiny piece. You know, now we kind of got like a weird little face thing for our guy here, but it's fine. We're just using this to test out the tools. The next tool is the drag tool. Now the drag tool is fun because you can adjust what it does. So you can pull out a piece and keep pulling out a piece and keep pulling out a piece and keep pulling out pieces and keep pulling out pieces. That's what the drag tool does. It makes interesting choices on your shapes. Now we got like this weird thing popping out of his head. We're gonna erase all that. Again, you can be symmetrical or asymmetrical, whatever you want to do. But again, it's gonna be to the world center. So whatever I do there is gonna happen somewhere else, world center. There we go. So yeah, the method, that's what I was looking for earlier. You can add the local or the world center. Local just means on your object, it'll find the center of your object and then it'll start pulling things like that. It doesn't seem even, but it is. Technically, it's even because it's in the center of the object. I just started drawing and pulling stuff on different places that aren't the same. That's why I like to do world center. I know I'm mucking it up, but it doesn't matter. This is just to test out the tools. All right, and then like I said, we have a smooth brush that can make any part of the thing smooth. You can keep the symmetry on or off and just highlight whatever part you want to do. You can zoom in, as you can see, it's getting smoother right here. Just smooth stuff out if you want to make better gaps and ridges in your clay pieces. But we're not going to really be messing with this clay piece again. We're going to build our robot using the basic shapes and squares. I'm just using this to show you guys the tools that are there. The brush tool is pretty much the same thing as like the clay tool. It like will add or yeah, I think it's just adding clay in certain spots. It's just a brush. You can change the, like, you know, what the brush does or how it does, but it pretty much just adds clay into these areas. It's another way to add clay. Next, you have the paint tool, and then you can click on a certain area of the guy and paint him. But since we're in matte cap, which is the clay version, it'll give it an off color. Smudge tool, again, you can like move things around with the smudge tool. It's what it does. It gives it a little smudge. You can make it nice and big and nice and obvious, and just keep doing stuff, and it'll like change the the shape of something. Just smudge it out. The next we have a planter tool, which like flattens out things. As you can see how it just flattened out that whole little area. It just gets flattened. That's a planter tool. Pinch. The pinch tool is like a drag sort of. See how it's making like these little like narrow, it's like this little thing is becoming more narrow because I'm pinching the clay together. See how we're getting this design here? That's from the pinch. We're squeezing the clay together in this spot, and it's giving us like this weird little like gill sort of thing right there. Next we have layer, which just adds clay in that spot, just like the clay tool, but also the layer tool, you can affect it using the layers tool. We'll get to that later. Crease, again, it puts a crease in the area. As you can see, it's like thinning out here. It'll put like a whole dent in this area if you just keep making it go up and down, as you can see right there. Puts a crease in it. Nudge, gently move something around in the space. You just like turn it a little bit or open it up some. You just nudge it until it gets to where you need it to be. As you can see, it's like making this rise into that spot. It's like gentle pushes of clay. And again, make it bigger or whatever. Then we have the flatten tool, which is like the planter tool, but it's more so in the space. Like right here is becoming flat. Cool. You get the project tool. Look at that. You just make like a curve, and then it'll sorry, I'm like destroying this thing. It'll make whatever you did. You see how they made that square, that circle there? It just make that. There's different ways to do it. You can do a line, which usually crashes the app, but it's getting better. And then we have a rectangle. Look at that, it just made a perfect rectangle through his head right there. And the ellipses, which is a circle, and it'll just make a circle through him. Whatever you want to do there. Then we have the stamp tool, which is pretty cool to make like skins and stuff. You pick apart and drag, and it'll make like these weird patterns. It's kind of cool. It's fun. So you want to give your sculpture like some scales or skin or stuff like that. You use the stamp tool. The Del layer is just next level stuff that you really don't need right now. The selection tool here just grabs whatever. If there's multiple things, you make like a thing and it'll grab that one specific thing. The inflate tool is fun. You pick an area and then it'll just make it inflate, draw in circles, and it'll make a big old puffy circle thing in that spot. This guy looks gross, but it's okay. The tube tool is fun because this is how you add shapes that you can't necessarily make with the shapes that they give you. And we'll get to this in a little bit later. Let's delete that for now. Tube tool comes in handy a lot too. Tube. Transform tool. Second figure. Switch mode. Trying to remember exactly how to use that. We don't really need it for now. Lathe is how to make interesting shapes and stuff that you can't make again and it makes it like along the world center. It'll make another shape for you. It does these weird things that for like shapes that you can't really create, like weird donuts and stuff. Whatever you want to do there. Again, we're going to delete these. And that's the basic of your tools, guys, pretty much. Oh, and then we have my favorite, the measure tool, not my favorite, but we have the measure tool. You can measure how many polygons across something is. And then the trim tool. This is going to come in handy so much later on. The trim tool, what it does is there's different ways to do it. You can make a lasso and it'll cut everything behind there. You can make a polygon, so if you need a specific shape, make a polygon. If you hit the white dots and make them black, it becomes hard lines instead of soft lines. See, these are soft lines with the white, and then the black are hard lines. And then the green dot is how you choose what you want to cut. Look at that, made an incision on both sides because we have symmetry on. We did the line, we have the rectangle. Take a rectangle and it'll make the cut. Again, we have symmetry on, and the ellipses, again, it'll cut it in a circle. Now, there's another option at the top which says boolean. I don't know how to exactly say this. I think it's boolean, not boolean, but when you click that, what it does is, we're gonna turn it off. None. And then we're gonna make a cut. Then we're gonna turn and look and see that cut. See what it did to the cut here? It made it hollow. So this entire thing on the inside is hollow now. Well, let's make a bigger incision. Just like that. Now you can see the inside is hollow. Look at that. That's when you do with a boolean, when you have none. Now we're gonna change it to fill, and we're gonna cut it like that. And it closed it back up. We made a little indent, but now we closed up that thing that we just had open. Now it's back and filled with clay. Let's put it in boolean. Make a little cut. And then this cut goes all the way through, but it's not hollow. The cut went all the way through to the other side, but it's not hollow. But if you want it to be none, let's see what legacy. All right, yeah, that didn't really change it. So we're gonna go to none, and then once we make this hole here, now the whole thing is gonna be hollow, except for the one that we made earlier. But if you look around in that hole, you can see the depth inside because we boolean. Let me just make the hole bigger. Boop. Now it's hollow again. So when you have none, it's hollow. When you hit the fill, it fills up this circle, and that's the trim tool. The next thing that we're gonna do, the last one we're gonna go over, is the split tool. We're gonna zoom our guy out. The split tool. So now we're gonna take this. There's again all the different things. We got lasso, polygon, line, rectangle, ellipses. I like to do polygon or rectangle. And then there's two different things. There's square and centered. So we can do centered and it'll go from the center outward, or we can go square and it'll go, turn off the center, square, and it'll go from where you start and it'll make a bigger square. I like to use this one. Actually, I like to use them just auto validate, so I can make it like a rectangle, or like just, I can affect it instead of it just being symmetrical or making a square, I can make it a rectangle. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna chop this guy in half real fast, and I'm gonna show you. So again, we have the option to go to boolean, just leave it the normal one, and then we're gonna start from about here and then cut this guy here. Bang. Took a little math for it to figure it out, and now it's mesh and mesh split. So I can go down to our gizmo, and I can just move half of it. Just split the guy in half. Look at that, he's filled up in half. Split this dude right in half. I mean, he looks better that way, and you can just rotate one part and make him more or less a tree goblin. But this is not what we're here to do. We're here to just explain the tools. Now we have two different parts. Okay. And then, since we went through all the tools, let's begin making our robot. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into the scene here, and you can either go into this 3 dots and hit delete, or hit delete at the top. To highlight a selection, you click on the square and it'll highlight it. Though that this thing is highlighted right now, you can click the eye and it'll be gone. It'll be gone. It's still there, but it doesn't look like it in our scene. So we can turn it on and there it is. And we can turn it off and it's gone, and we can select it and it'll give it like this view, like it's there. It lets you know that it's there, but it's not a usable object. So it's there in the space, but it's not a usable object. Cool. All right, so we're gonna go back to our scene tool. We're gonna delete that. We don't need that. We need to see what our robot looks like. So we're gonna go up to the top to this picture here where it says background, and we're gonna go where it says reference image. We're gonna click that box, and it's my reference image from my last project. And we're gonna click the picture, and we're gonna go to import from our photos, because we saved some photos earlier. So now we're gonna click our robot from the different angles and the arm. Select all three, and we're gonna hit add at the top, and there we go. Now we have a reference image. Oh, we're done. We don't need to import again. We have a reference image on the screen of our robot. Now I think that's a little too big, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna hit where it says transform, and you're gonna pinch out a little bit and move him over to the side so that he's not all the way blocking the screen, but he's not like off the screen as well. So that's good enough for me. So I'm gonna tap the screen, and now that's where our reference image is gonna sit. Okay. And for me, I'm gonna use the other image that we had, the head image first, because that's what I want to build first. So that's where our reference image is gonna be, and that's what we need to make. All right, so how do we start? How do we build this robot? Well, it looks like we need a box, and we can find a box in our scene tool. So, and we're gonna go to scene. We're gonna go to this plus right here where it says add, hit the plus, and it's gonna give you options for all of these different shapes. Now, not every shape is here, and not everything that you need is here, but the tube tool is here in the bottom corner. Actually, so they updated it, so the tube tool is here now. Okay, nice. But we need, for the primitive shape that we just chose, is going to be a box. Boom. And so a box becomes in our scene. There's a box now, guys. Now there's these couple things you can do for the box prior to validating it. Validating it means that we are able to manipulate it in different ways that we wouldn't be able to manipulate it in until it's validated. But right now, this is our box, guys. It's our little cube. You see all these little dots and gizmos and stuff? Well, we can scale it up from here. We can make it wider from here. We can make it longer from here. And then the blue ones, again, we can adjust it here. Or we can use the gizmo and do the same thing. It's pretty much the gizmo there. But we're gonna just reset everything. There's our square. There's world center. Good to go. Now what we're gonna do before we can make real change to this thing is we have to validate it. And validate it, it makes it real. The first thing I like to do after I validate is I go to our fourth option here, which is the decimation. So it's like the multi-res layer. And we're gonna go to where it says decimation. Now what this does, it says target triangles 50%. Now what this does is it's going to lower the number of polygons on this box so that it doesn't take up so much memory. Now here's what I like to do right now. I like to decimate it 3 times 3 until the first dot is under 1,000 polygons, and then we're good to go, because it's just a square, guys, and it's okay for our beginner projects to have low polygon parts. So this is our head. This is the head of the robot. We're gonna use this square. I like that it's a square, but again, we said it's like more like a rectangle. So we're gonna use the blue thing to pull it out some. And since it is his entire body, let's make it a little bit longer too. And then we're gonna go back to world center, and this is our guy's head. Unless we want to keep it true to form, let's just make it more regular, more rectangular. And this is our guy's head and body. And so that's what we're gonna name this thing, this first part, the box. Now that we've decimated it and had it less than 1,000 polygons on the first part, it is now ready to be named because this is gonna be used. So instead of box, we're gonna call this head. The head. Nice. We got the head of our robot, guys. Look at that. It's just a square, right? So we got this rectangle well, we say it's more like a rectangle. So we got this rectangle ready to rock and roll. Now we can add the eyepiece. Let's do the eyepiece from the front view. So front view, looking pretty good so far. Let's do the eyepiece. How are we gonna make this eyepiece? Well, for me, I think this wired mesh is a donut circle and then a dome over it. How are we gonna do that? I'm gonna show you right now. We're gonna go to add, and we're gonna go to torus, Torus. I'm sure I'm not saying that right either, but it's this donut. And again, we're gonna validate it immediately. I know it's inside of the box, don't worry, we're gonna take care of that now. It's inside of the box, but it's validated, and it's in the world center, and that's where we want it. So what we're gonna do is go to our side here and go to snap, change that from 45 to 90. Snap 90, hit OK. Use the red axis to rotate it up, just like that. It's in the middle of our guy, we don't need it there, so we're gonna use the blue axis to move it forward. This keeps it aligned with the world center, and for later on, it's gonna be easier for us to maneuver. Well, I think this is way too big because our eye over here fits inside of there. And it also has like those lines, and it looks different from what we have right here. All right, so let's effectively move this smaller by using that outer line to evenly across all of the angles, zoom it in. Well, that looks a lot better to me, but I want it to be a little bit thicker. So we're gonna go to the blue, we're gonna turn it to a side and hit the blue access ball and just expand it some. Look at that, I think that looks so good. The next thing that we're gonna do is try to give it that line thing. So my idea for this is to use some of these tools over here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit the right side, pull back some, use the blue arrow to move it off the square, and then we're going to go to our inflate tool and have some fun. So the inflate tool, then we're gonna hit this back to the front. We're gonna zoom in. I like to turn it off to the side a little bit, to be honest. And then we're just gonna draw on here. Look at that. We're gonna put these little pops, these little inflated things here. You can just go back and forth, or you can make circles. You can go up and down or back and forth and make circles. And I like to make it like this little wired mesh around his head. So now that it's validated, we have this. We're gonna go to decimate, and see how it says 6,000 polygons is too much. 1, 2,000 maybe too much. Below 1,000, we're good to go. Now it looks all funny and inflated and like clay, and I like that, honestly, it's fun. I think that looks better than making it a crap ton of polygons. But if you have an iPad that can handle 1,000,000 polygons on a scene, then go for it, leave it high res. But for this little basic drawing of a robot, this is good enough. It's low resolution, and that's fine. So we're gonna make the inflate part right here, and that's good enough. I think this is inflated and weird looking the way that I want it to be as like the eye cover. And I'm just gonna go back and forth and then go around it. We have symmetry on, and since it's in the world center, everything is happening evenly all across of it. All right, so now it's like this weird puffy looking thing here, and that's the eye cover for me. So now that I have the thing that I want, I'm gonna go to Gizmo, and then you know what? I think it's too fluffy now, so we're gonna use the blue axis to squish it down some. And then we're going to use the blue arrow to move it back. So now we want it to collide with our square. Make it nice, so that way there's no space in between. We're gonna collide it with the square so it's sticking out of it like that. Now it's one piece. And that to me is this little sharp dome around it. Now you can make it different ways. You can make a torus and make it actually sharp like that. But to me, I like this puffy, funny looking like mesh cover. And so I like to call this the eye mesh. This is how I design it. You guys can design it however you want if you know it. M-E-S-H, eye mesh. E-Y-E M-E-S-H. I like it like this. Now there's another way to do it. I'm gonna make another one real quick and I'm gonna show you. Doors. Ooh, we got snap 90 on. We're gonna validate it. We're gonna decimate 1, 2, 3. And then we're gonna go to our gizmo. snap 90, pull her back, use the blue one, rotate it back in that space, use the size thing to go here, and then we're going to use the crease tool. Crease tool. We're going to zoom in, and we're going to make this a lot smaller. Is that working? Hold on. Maybe I didn't grab the right tool. Hold on. Is it the pinch tool? Might be the pinch tool. Let's see. Big pinch. Sorta. Where is that tool at? Oh, you guys, I am tripping. Hold on. Is it the clay? Small? Like that? Subdivided off. It's still on, huh? Clay. Turn off subdivide. Yeah, we can inflate it like that with a clay tool. Come around it. The inflate tool works better though. It's the same deal pretty much. You just make it like that. Or if you want one that is completely, I like this too, but we're gonna delete this one. I'm gonna show you guys one more thing. Let's say we wanted it to be just like that with cylinders. We're gonna go into we're gonna save because, you know, we haven't saved in a while, even though the autosave is going. We're gonna save, we're gonna go back into the scene, we're gonna go to the add, we're gonna hit cylinder. Now this is gonna be fun. We're gonna validate that cylinder, just like always. We're gonna go to decimate, 1, 2, make sure it's below 1,000 on that first thing. We're going to go to our gizmo, and we're gonna pull this out here. Now look how big this cylinder is. It's way too big. And we need this so much smaller. So we're gonna shrink it down till about there. Now, we're gonna go back into our scene and we're gonna go to add. At the bottom, there's these other things that we can do here. There's the group for cameras, and then there's repeaters. Now, I like repeaters because they can make fun stuff. Curve and radial are one of the two that we're going to use right now. We're going to try radial first. And then gizmo, snap 90. And then increase the number. Nope, wrong way. Snap 90. Am I doing this wrong? I think I'm doing this wrong. Hold on. Oh, yeah, I'm doing it way wrong. That's not it. Radial Z, we want 0. There we go. Radial Y. Let's see radial Y. Yeah, I think that's doing it. No, it's not. Is it radial Z? All right, so it might be curve. Curve is going to be the one to do it for us. Closed curve. There we go. Now let's see if we do a big count. Yep. Okay, so then we have the curve tool. All right, so I'm going to delete all this and just show you, completely explain what I'm doing right now. All right, so we have a cylinder. We're going to rotate it in the space. Ooh. World center. We can delete all this stuff. All right, so cool. Now it's really big. We have our cylinder. We're going to shrink it down, and then we're going to go to our scene, and we're going to go to add, and we're going to go to curve. Now what this does is it gives us another cylinder that we can use to play around with. And if we go to where it says count, we can add more cylinders and make like a line. Now we can make it a closed object and then make a circle out of it by adding points. And as you can see, it sort of looks like the thing that we were going for. So we're just gonna give it all these different points and then see what happens. Okay, so let's say I have too many points here, like I don't want all these points. You grab one of the dots and you go to the nearest red X and it'll delete it. Oop, see, that point goes away and that point goes away, but we need more points because we want it more circular. Let's take that out, let's take that out. And then we're gonna add to that count. Let's make it a little less. Oh, this is starting to look more like what we actually drew with that lines. Even though my circle is all wonky and off, this looks more like what we started to draw there. So you could use this as well as your circle piece. I have too many little vertices here. But you can also use this if you really wanted it to look like this instead of the mesh that I have there. Okay, well then we're gonna validate it and we're gonna see, it says keep instances, uninstance, or join children. We're gonna join children, making this one actual shape, and then we're gonna decimate it to all the way down to less than 1,000 polygons. So 11K is too much, so decimate, decimate, decimate. Decimate divides by 2 the amount of polygons. One more time, below low, and we're good. And it gives it like this weird clay look, and I love that about it. So we're gonna delete my original one, and we're just gonna go with this one. Even though it's not perfect, it's fine, it's fun. Let's use this one to make it look like our eye thing. So we got world center, and then we're gonna hit pivot right here, which also aligns our gizmo to the center. You hit center and it'll align it to the center. Hit pivot again, and now you can move this along the axis. It's not perfect, it's crooked on one side, but I like it. And then now we're going to put this inside here. It's a little crooked, so we have snap 90. We're gonna turn off snap 90. Straighten this out a little bit more for my liking. Like that. Good enough. And then we're gonna turn it to the front. Let's see. About there. And we're gonna push that in. And now that looks like our little eye circle here. But we said there's a dome above it, so how do we draw the dome? Well, I like to go to the scene tool. We're gonna name this curve eye mesh. Gotta name our stuff. E-Y-E-M-E-S-H, eye mesh. Cool. So now we have the eye mesh. Now I want the eye mesh and the head to be in the same group. So what you do is you hit eye mesh, you hold it, and you see this little yellow line, it'll group it together with the head. So now you can close the head and you can turn off the head, and you turned off everything pretty much. See, it's all gone. There's 2 different pieces here, but since they're in the same group, they'll all move as one as well too, as we hit that group. So we hit the head, we close it, we select it, and it'll select all the pieces, and we use our gizmo, and we can move everything together. We're gonna undo that to keep it world center. All right, so next we're gonna add another shape. It's called a sphere. We're gonna take that sphere, we're gonna immediately validate it. We're gonna get our gizmo tool to move it. Oh, whoa, that's too big. So then we're going to scale it down. First, I like to do our decimate. 1, 2, 3, good enough. Look how clay, like it looks like real clay. Now we have to make this ball fit inside of this weirdly shaped thing like that. But this is a dome. How can we see in the inside of the dome? Well, here's what we do to make it look like it's a dome. I'm gonna make it bigger and I'm gonna move it over just a little bit. At the top here, we have our materials. This sphere, we're going to make it additive. Now additive, look at that. It made it like a light, like a dome. Like this is where his eye is. So very cool. Now we have this dome shape here in the material. We're gonna make the opacity a little bit lower. A little bit lower. Yeah, let's raise it up. That's pretty good. Now we're gonna call this the eye dome. It's not just a sphere, it's an eye dome. E-O-N-E. Now we can just put this in the head, or we can open up the head and make an even another subcategory inside the head for the eye stuff. So I can hold this down and I can move it up and it'll move it closer to the eye mesh. And so now inside the head, there's the eye mesh, which contains the eye mesh and the eye dome. And now I'm going to add another thing, another sphere. This sphere, again, we're going to validate it. We're going to go to decimate, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to use this sphere, use our gizmo, to move this sphere forward, shrink it down a lot, and it lives inside the eye dome. And this is his eye. This is the robot's eye that we drew. This is also going to be additive. So we're going to additive, and we're going to make the intensity really high, like that. So as you can see, when I go to view mode, view mode is at the top. I have mine at the very top. I have like my gizmo at the bottom, my view mode at the top. I like to look at stuff in view mode. View mode is great so you don't make mistakes and drag something or change something. So we have it in view mode. And this is our guy's eye. Look at that. He's got an eye. He's got an eye dome. Now let's name this sphere eye. Again, you can make this into another subcategory if you want, but I'm just going to call it eye glow. And leave it in the eye mesh. So the eye mesh consists of the eye glow. Now all these parts will move independently from the sphere, but they'll move together, independent from the head base, because they're all in a subcategory here. And you can get in the habit of making subcategories, but make sure you always name your parts, and then we're gonna save. Cool. So now we need an antenna. So we got the eye dome, we got the eye mesh, and now we need an antenna for the top of his head. It's in the back of his head. So what we're gonna do is keep him straight, and we're gonna hit on the right-hand side the tube tool. And the tube tool, we're just gonna go where it says, on the left-hand side, it says path. And the path, it just means whatever I draw is where it's gonna go in a straight line. I like it in just a little straight line. So to make it real, there's a green dot here. You hit that green dot and it makes the shape real. It's not validated, but it is a real shape. Yeah. Now we have some options here. I want to make the antenna like how I have it on the top of his head. So it's like real skinny and it gets a little ball on the top. So what I like to do is add a radius to it. And what a radius is, it'll give it 2 radiuses, please. It'll give it a way that I can adjust the bottom here and the top here independently as a radius, instead of it being a single radius where it'll move everything together like so. So I like to do 2 radiuses and then make the big one, the bottom part bigger, and the top right super thin where it touches and makes it into a cone. And then we're gonna make the bottom one thinner too, but still thicker than that. And I like that a lot. It's long enough. I'm gonna validate it, and then what are we gonna do? Check it out. Tube, that's 10K. No. Decimate. We don't need 10K on a tiny little thing. That's too much. It's too many polygons. All right, so now we have our tube, but it doesn't look exactly like that. But I'm gonna move it into position first. So I'm gonna rotate this along here, the axis. Now you can change the point of where you move an object. I have it moving it from the tip to the base. You go to pivot and you go to center, and you can drag this along where you want the object to be pivoted. So let's put it right here and hit pivot, and now it rotates from there. See what I mean? If I don't like that, I can change the pivot to the center, move it up to the tip like that, and now it rotates from the tip over here. Cool. You can do that wherever you want, whatever makes it easier for you to see, whatever makes it easier for you to align your parts. All right, so we're gonna move it. Yeah, I think it's too small, honestly. Let me look at this guy. Yeah, it's way too tiny. Look how big our robot is. So like, how do we fix that? Well, we're gonna scale this bad boy up a lot. So we're gonna go to our gizmo tool, we're gonna use that outer thing, and look how it's scaling him up. Look how big this antenna is now. And if that's not enough for you to scale it, make it wider, make it down, make it out, and look how the scale of it is now. But I'm gonna scale it back down some. All right, so now we're gonna move it into the head. We're gonna raise it up. It doesn't have to be 40 feet long. So you can either shove it down into the robot's head, or you can make this guy, again, smaller. It might be bigger, but like smaller, shorter. And we're putting it in the back of his head here, okay? And I like it so far. Let's zoom out and see if we can see this thing. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's in a good position on the back of his head. Let's move it over a little bit. And right there is pretty good. Move it back some. Right there is pretty good. Okay. So now we need a ball on top of that. So we can either make a ball and shove it on top of there, or we can have some fun with the inflate tool. Inflate. And we gotta zoom in, so we pinch the screen and pull our fingers apart. Zoom to the tip of this thing. And then we're just gonna make sure everything is not on there. No subdivide. No. Okay. Inflate. Yes. It's so big. Zoom it down some. And I'm gonna make it like a fat little antenna thing here. It's not perfect. It's a weird amount of polygons. But that's the antenna ball. I like doing that. It's so funny. It doesn't have to be perfect, but yet now we have a little antenna ball on top of our antenna. So we have it decimated. We're gonna call this antenna. Antenna, boom, boom. And we're gonna make sure it's in the head still. Yep, it's in the head, but it's just not with the eye mesh. It's antenna and it's on top of the head. So now we got the front part of our robot done. Look at that, gang. It has an eyeball in there somewhere. Let's hit the eye layer. Eye mesh. Oh, I turned it off. I'm like, where's the eye? There it is. There it is. Now it's on. Now it has an eye and the antenna. It looks pretty good from the front view. Now let's see what we're missing with the back view. And the side view doesn't show us anything spectacular, but we had the back view where we add those 2 rectangles, 4 cylinders, and 2 wires to make on the head. Head/body of our robot. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is draw the cylinders in the back of his head. So the rectangle, I'm sorry, we're gonna go to add, we're gonna go to box, we're gonna validate it immediately. Remember, again, decimate 3 times, 1, 2, 3, so it's below 1,000. Go to our gizmo tool, and then we're gonna push it back. Woo. It's so big, we don't need it that big. So we're gonna use the green axis to smush it down, and then we're gonna use the red axis to move it inward, because it's not all the way to the edges and it's not super big. So thin it down some. And thin it down a little bit more. You can bring it in too, because we don't need it to stick out that far. And we're gonna crush it into the robot, and we're gonna bring this up. So it looks like there's enough space there. And there's enough space for 4 cylinder things to go on underneath it. Perfect. Now we need a second one that's exactly the same size. So what can we do? In the top left here, there's a button that says clone. We're gonna hit that clone button after the autosave is done. Thank you, autosave. And then we're gonna hit the green axis, and boom, there's another box perfectly aligned in exactly the same shape and size as the other one. And now it's down near the bottom where the other one needs to be, like how we have it in our drawing. And now we're gonna name these boxes head accessory. Saves a lot of time. Now, I don't need to call them head accessory 1 and 2 because there's nothing special about either one of them. But we can put them in the same group. And then these 2 things, let's leave that there. These 2 things are in the same group. And now we need to add the wires. So how would we make those wires? Well, we got that trusty tube tool again. Where is our tube tool? Tube, there it is. So last time we used path, which just gave us a straight line. Now we're going to use this one called curve. Now what curve does is exactly that. It makes a curve. So we're going to hit curve, and we're going to leave it open, and we're just going to go from the back of the top of the box to the bottom of the box like that. And boom, it made us this curve. Now before we validate it, we're going to use our gizmo to look at it and see what we did. We can move this in, and I think it's too thick, so before I validate it, we're going to hit radius 2, radius 1. Edit, go back to editing. Edit. There we go, put view mode on so we can edit it again. And then we're going to hit that little tiny dot and thin out that wire some. And now it looks pretty good. It's all the way inside here, like that, and it's sticking out the back so far. Now I think it needs to be a little bit neater. We can just make it come in like this. We can delete some of those pieces like that, and so that it's not poking out the back like in our drawing. It's not poking all the way out to the side. So let's not have it do that. Now we can make these soft edges, or we can make them hard edges by clicking the black dot, but it's a wire, so we give it soft edges, just like that. Move it in. You can honestly delete that one. And now we got a wire that's inside of the side of the robot, like what we wanted. And we turn it to the side so we make sure there's no weird collisions. It doesn't have to be straight, but if you want to straighten it out, you can. You know, move it over, straighten it out. Pull it in, something like that. Now we're going to validate it. We are going to decimate it if it needs to be. Yes, indeed. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to make it additive. And now it's a wire. So we're going to name it wire. Instead of tube, we're going to call it wire. But we need one on the other side too. So what are we going to do? We're going to call this wire glow. All right, get into the habit of any part that's glowing, name it wire glow. Give me 2 seconds, gang. I got a call coming in. 1 second. Yes, James.
Fred.
Yes.
Fred.
Yes,
Freddy.
James.
Freddy, my boy.
James, I'm teaching something. So
How you doing?
I'm doing something. I'm like a little bit busy. Yes. So what's up? What's up?
Okay. All right. So basically, I was calling you because I wanted to check up on the thing first, and then also I did talk to Gabe, and he wanted me to get a professional video also done. So I got it done, and I wanted to send it to you so that you can see it.
All right. Well, send it to me, bud. And then we'll talk a little bit later.
And also, could you send me the logo that you use for the Rebel?
Yeah.
Okay, like I need you to let me know, like, I want your intake, because you know your intake is more important to me.
Gotcha. I will.
Yes. I will send you the video now.
All right. I'll let you know, bud. Thank you very much. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Yes.
All right, buddy.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Bye-bye.
Don't forget, call me.
Yep. Bye-bye. Sorry about that. All right. So now we're back at it. So we got the wire. So now it says wire glow. Get into the habit of naming things that glow with a glow name so that you can find it easier. All right. So we have wire glow. So we need this on the other side as well. So what we're going to do is in our scene, we're going to hit wire glow and we're going to hit clone. And now we have 2 of them. But we need this on the opposite side. So on the top right, there's this 2 triangles, and this is symmetry. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to where it says flip object, and there's 3 different ways to flip it, the X, Y, and the Z axis. I want to flip it along the X axis, and it shows you exactly how it's going to flip it. So the X is across, the Y is up and down, and the Z is the front. And this is the other thing that we were looking for earlier, the world center orientation. It's under symmetry. Nice. Anyway, okay, so now that we have that there, now it flipped it evenly to the other side, and now it's on the other side. So we have the 2 wires that is inside the head accessory, and now we need cylinders on the top part. So we're going to go to add. We're going to go to cylinder. All right, and we're going to validate it. Cool. And we're going to decimate twice. And then we're going to go down to our gizmo. Then we're going to use the blue one to push it back. And we're going to shrink it down incredibly small. Like so. Even smaller. To be honest, even smaller. And then make it a little bit longer. I think that's pretty good. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And then what we're going to do is we're going to smush it down like this. And this is going to be like the plate that it sits on. So it's not just shooting out of this box. It's like in this box, but inside this sphere, inside this plate is where we're going to put the actual glowing part. So we're going to put that there, and then we are going to, cylinder. We're going to name this injector plate. Cool. And then now we're going to clone this real fast. We're just going to hit the clone tool here, and we're going to bring it down. And now what we're going to do is we're going to shrink it a little bit more and then make it longer and push it back inside the plate. So now it is completely fitted inside here, and it looks like the injector. So now we're going to make this additive. Look at that. And we're going to call this injector glow. Injector plate glow. Now we're going to sync these two into one category, one subcategory, injector plate glow. We're going to highlight it, and then we're going to copy, we're going to clone it, and it's going to clone both of them because they're in the same group. It cloned everything, and we moved it over. Look at that. Now we got these two parts that are exactly the same, but we needed 4 of them. And as per our drawing, we needed 4 of them. So clone it again, move it into place. Clone it again, move it into place. Now these are too small. It turned out just a little too small. Now what are we going to do then? So how do we make them bigger? So we go to injector plate 1, use the gizmo tool, and just, no, we don't need all of them, we just need the one. See how we have these both selected? We just need injector plate number 1 and make it bigger. Or you can highlight them all. Let's highlight them all. Let's make them all bigger at the same rate. Highlight all of them and just make them all bigger. Now they're going to be moved over, so that's fine. So now that we have them all exactly the same size, now let's move them all one by one. Now let's move the second one in. Let's move injector plate 1. Oh, actually, we're just going to move them both. Move both of these inward, just like that. Look at that, how that worked out. And then we can move 3 and 4, 2 and 3. Move those in. Look at that. Look at that. That worked out pretty good. Let's move 2 out a little bit. Ta-da! And now we built our robot's head with all the components that we said it's going to have. It has the eye port, it has the eye, it has the antenna, and then it has these glowing pieces on the back. Look at that. And there's our robot's head. We did it, gang. We made the head of our robot. The head and body of our robot is done. We could see it in 3D. We could see it from all the different angles. We got our front view here. We got our 45 degree. We got our profile, and we got our back view. And that's it, guys. You did it. You made the first part of your robot. I'm so proud of you. If you're following along, you made it this far. Good job. This is the head of your robot. Now we can move on to the next piece, which is either the arm, or we could do the midsection and the legs. So let's just do the arm, because we only need to make one of those bad boys. So we're going to need to change our reference image. So we're going to go up to the top where it says background, reference image. We're going to click on the arm that we drew, and now that is our reference image. Now what I like to do is save, of course, before we move on to the next part, and then we're going to go into our head. We're going to highlight everything and turn everything off. Boom. And then we're going to make a next layer for the arm layer, but I have to use the restroom, so we're going to do a quick pause, and then we're gonna get back into building our robot. Okay, give me 2 minutes.